So I've got a special prop. I just felt like bringing this and sharing it, really. Fixed it. So I've just brought my favourite quote that's not in the Bible. This is in our house. This is from a programme called The West Wing. Absolutely, yes, West Wing fans in the house. And this is a quote that Toby says. And I love this. We have this in our house. It's my favourite thing. I share it with my colleagues. It says, we're a group, we're a team. We win together, we lose together. We celebrate and we mourn together. And defeats are softened and victories sweeter because we did them together. You're my guys and I'm yours. And there's nothing I wouldn't do for you. I love that. I love that. That's so important for my team. So this is a gift that Dan brought me, and it's in our house. Can you see what it's done? Oh, sorry, Micah. You've got it on the cables as well. Is that some of your very expensive subscription coffee? Or is that Jubilee Centre coffee?
That's Jubilee Centre coffee.
Well, okay. At least you've not wasted our coffee. Well, I'll leave it to you to sort this out then.
Let me see if I can fix it. Hang on. Because I'm a fixer. That's not gone well, has it? What about I've got a sponge here. I've not thought this through on many levels. On many levels. It's just let's just slide it back here, and I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll get the lectern up, and we'll get Hannah to come and read the story, and we'll see what happens.
On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He's not here. He's risen. Remember how he told you, while he was still with you in Galilee, the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the 3rd day be raised again." Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them who told this to the apostles. But they did not believe the women, because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away, wondering to himself what had happened.
Thank you, Hannah. Well, I promise do you trust me? I promise I'll fix it. Well, what? Photocopy that? Do you know how photocopier works? Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Dan, and I'm in trouble. I lead the team here, and it's my privilege to speak this morning. And we are all in. And so, kids, I need your help for a moment. Phoebe, can you put these pictures up? Can anyone tell me what these things have in common? What do you think? They're all buttons. No, not quite. Soap's not a button. Anything else, Joss? that you're not allowed to answer because you know the answer. Anyone else who didn't hear my son? So I think these are all things, as Josiah said, that you have to trust in. Okay? There are all things that not only do you have to trust in, but we blindly trust in, don't we? So traffic lights. When you're driving along the road and the traffic light is green, because a driving instructor told you once, you go through the green light. And I know we're all meant to slow down, but how many of us, when driving down Wakefield Road or around Ainley Top Roundabout, actually slow down? How many of us just go straight through, fully trusting the green light? The fire alarm button. We trust that when someone hits the fire alarm button, that the alarm will go off and we'll all evacuate the building. How many of you here have tested the Jubilee Centre fire alarm? See, there are a few people, but not everyone. The rest of us all trust that it works. The sat-nav. How many of us blindly follow the sat-nav, have no idea? Anyone still own a paper map? I found my A to Z of London the other day. That's a stressful experience. We just blindly, put that destination in and we go for it, don't we? We don't look where we're going. Soap. Somebody told me once that if I wash my hands with soap, it will kill the germs. And so I go to the shop and I buy something that says soap, and I wash my hands, and I trust that they're going to be clean again. How many of you look into the biology of it and microscopic and look for the germs on your hands after you've washed your hands? Really? Does it really? Linda does. Oh, she's on a course. Most of us don't do it though, do we? The brake pedal. When you were driving here this morning, parents, adults, when you put your foot on the brake pedal, did you expect your car to stop? Yes, exactly. Because one day in your driving lesson, your driving instructor said, if you put your foot on that pedal, your car will stop. And finally, the lift buttons, elevator buttons, if you're Americans. How many of us trust lift buttons? Jackie doesn't trust lift buttons. When you go in the lift and you press button 3, what floor do we think we're going to come out at? 3. And how many of us actually check when we walk out of floor 3 that we're on floor 3? How many of us have been in a lift with someone else, not noticed they've pressed a button, and got out before them? And how many of us, when we were in our teenage years, got in the lift knowing we only needed to go to floor 1 and they needed to go to floor 20, and we pressed all of them? Definitely not me. See, we trust in all these things, don't we? I believe one of the crucial questions, if not the crucial question, God asks in the Easter story, but also throughout the whole of the Bible is, do you trust me? Now, kids, I'm going to keep speaking, but there are some colouring pens and some sheets down here if you want to do some colouring while you're listening to me. But please keep listening to me. But I'm aware that, adults, you can feel free to get a colouring sheet as well if you want. I'm aware, though, that having something else to do sometimes helps. So there's some colouring sheets. And we'd love to see them at the end as well. We'd love to see your artwork at the end. So I believe one of the crucial stories that Jesus asks, God asks in the Bible is, do you trust me? I want you to imagine now, kids, you can do this as well. I want you to imagine that you live 2,000 years ago. And that you have walked with Jesus for 3 years. That you have given your life to him. You've walked on those hills, you've walked on those dusty roads with him. Every day you have listened to him. Every day you have eaten with him. And Jesus has told you all sorts of wonderful things. All sorts of amazing things. And you love him dearly. He's one of your closest friends. And then one day, almost out of nowhere, he is taken away. He's arrested. He's beaten. And then, as you stand there, at the side of a hill, in utter despair, you see your friend, your Lord, hung on a cross for all to see. This man you thought was going to save everyone doesn't in this moment seem to be able to save himself. The world is laughing, but you are stood there completely lost. I wonder how many of us feel a little bit like this right now in some ways. We look at our circumstances, we look at the things going on in the world around us, and we feel lost. And then Saturday comes. Now Saturday, in the Jewish calendar, Saturday is the Sabbath. And in Jewish culture, they would have gone to the temple or the synagogue. So those people who stood on the side in their loss and in their hurting and in their pain, maybe they get the energy to get up and just to go to the synagogue, go to the temple. But maybe they're just going through the motions. Maybe they're just trying to comprehend what happened the day before. Perhaps even this morning as you have gathered to worship here, you recognize this story. That coming to this place feels a little bit just like going through the motions because you're questioning so many things and inside you are struggling. And then night falls. And as the sun comes up on Sunday morning, you do the little you can. You go to your task list. How many of us go to our task list when we don't really know what else to do? And for these women, this meant, you just go to me. For these women, this meant returning to the tomb. And they returned to the tomb to do the next part of the burial preparation, the burial, what's the word I'm searching for? Ceremony, the next act. They took the herbs and the spices. And as they get there, suddenly they look out and the stone is rolled away. And those words that Hannah read, there's two men stood there. Two men who, in the book of Matthew, they're called angels. And they use these words. Why do you look for the living among the dead? Why do you look for the living among the dead? What a question. A couple of days earlier, you watched your Savior die on a cross. And then suddenly, someone is asking you why you look for the living among the dead. I wonder how you would feel. Just put yourself in that place. The last time you saw Jesus, he was dead. And you've gone to the tomb where he has been taken. And now someone says, why are you looking for the living here? After the last few days that have gone by, would these words frustrate you? Would they even anger you? You know when someone says something that seems blindingly obvious and it's just annoying? But then they say these words, he is not hidden. Here, he is not here. He has risen. Remember how he told you. And as the men recount Jesus' words, something shifts. Remember how he told you. And these women, they haven't seen Jesus yet. That comes later in the story. Jesus appears on multiple occasions, but something in that moment when they said, remember what he told you, something shifts. In effect, in that moment, they have been asked, do you trust him? Do you trust the words of Jesus? And this is the question I want to pose to all of us this morning, whether you've been a Christian for 50 years or whether this is your first time hearing about Jesus. Do you trust him? Will you trust him? You see, as we've heard today on that video, this has been the question since the dawn of time. This has been the question since the beginning of the biblical story. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve were presented with a choice. God said they could eat of any tree except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that might seem to us like a bit of a cruel trick. Here's a bunch of stuff you can eat, but don't eat this bit, and I'm going to leave this here just in case. Ha. But see, that's not what God does in that moment. What God's actually saying to them is, here's all this amazing goodness. Do you trust me that this is enough? Do you trust me? Do you trust me that I can define good and evil? Do you trust me that I will lead you in paths of goodness and of health and of hope and of joy and of love and of compassion? Or do you need to go and find out for yourself? Do you trust me that I will keep you away from harm and destruction? That was the question that was asked of Adam and Eve. And do you know what? The serpent comes along, doesn't he? Do you remember the serpent, kids, in the Garden of Eden? And the serpent, what words does he use? Did God really say? In that moment, he says, did he really say? Do you really trust him? Do you really trust? Did God really say you shouldn't eat with that? And they reached out. They decided they didn't actually trust what God was saying. And they reached out and they took the fruit. And in that, with that, they said, on behalf of all creation, we don't trust you, God. We want to work this out for ourselves. We're going to work out this good and evil thing by ourselves. We think we've got this down. And they walked away, separated from God. The trouble is, I don't know if you've noticed, but it turns out that we don't know better. Parents, you ever have that with your kids? See, it turns out that we don't know better. And for thousands of years, mankind has been trying to work it out, trying to do it on our own, separated from God. And how is this going for us? When you look at the news, when you look at the world around us, when you see wars, famine, poverty, inequality, injustice, sickness, it doesn't look like it's going very well to me. A world devastated by mankind's choices. But 2,000 years ago, everything changed. Jesus came, God in flesh, fully man, fully God. He lived a life obedient to his heavenly Father. And that obedience led him to a cross. The night before he died, Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he said, Father, if you can take this away from me, but not my will, but yours be done. And he went to the cross and he suffered the most unbelievable pain. And as he did, he let out that cry that we talked about on Good Friday, it is finished. That word finished in the Greek literally means debt paid. He paid all the debts. He paid for all those mistakes, all those decisions, all those times where we've turned our back on our Maker, where we've been selfish, where we've been greedy. He took it all. All those unkind things we've said. And he paid the debt. And whilst this is the most incredible thing, I think what comes next is even more amazing. For it was finished on the cross, but it starts at the empty tomb. That question at the tomb, remember how he told you. How, do you notice the similarity? The angel says in that moment, remember how he told you. So similar to what the serpent said. Did God really say? The question at the tomb, remember how he told you. Do you trust him? And as the women trusted in him, their lives were changed. They saw the resurrected Jesus. There are stories, numerous accounts of Jesus appearing to people. And then they saw him ascend into glory, ascend into heaven. But that wasn't the end. And as the church was born and the Holy Spirit fell, they went on to spread the good news. And they saw life. They saw healings. They saw miracles. They saw hope restored. They saw joy. They saw equality. See, Jesus demonstrated his love at the cross. And he revealed his power at the empty tomb. This is that power. Jesus proved who he was. By rising from the dead, Jesus proved who he was. He proved his claims and he proved his authority. And he is not just here to make our lives better. He is making all things new. He is restoring everything around us, all the hurt, all the pain. Jesus has come to restore that. There was a pastor in New York called Tim Keller for a long time. He died a couple of years ago of pancreatic cancer, and he was interviewed in his last days, and he said this: if Jesus Christ was actually raised from the dead and was seen by hundreds of people and he talked to them, if he was raised from the dead, then everything's going to be all right. Whatever you are worried about, whatever you are afraid of, everything is going to be all right. Everything is actually going to be okay, because we're not just talking about a resurrected people. You know, lots of other religions talk about an afterlife. We'll just survive on this earth and then we'll get to heaven, or we'll get to the afterlife. But that's not what Jesus is talking about. He's not just talking about resurrected people. Jesus talks about a resurrected world. A world where everything is made new. Where all can come before him. Where our life is changed and transformed today. So once again I ask, do you trust him? I want to finish just by sharing some really quick stories from my own life about trusting. And I have loads of stories I could have chosen, but I've chosen these two this morning. But I want to be clear before I say this. God is not a transactional God. He's not like an investment fund or a credit card machine. You know, it's not a case of if I do this, then this happens. Okay, but I do believe when you are obedient to what God calls you to, when you are obedient to the call of God, that he speaks to us and he reveals himself to us. One of the areas he's spoken to me about multiple times is my own ambition. We have been married 20 years this year. Given the state of that may be it. We've been married 20 years. And so 20 years ago, we were looking for somewhere to live. I was finishing being a student, and we were looking for somewhere to live. And we went round looking for houses, as you do, to rent. And I'm not kidding. Every house we went to see went off the market before we could put an offer in. Like, it was almost embarrassing. We may as well not gone. I remember going to one house, beautiful house, went home, picked up the phone to the estate agent, and we could have only been back in the house like a minute. And I rang up and said, we want to put an offer in on this house. And they said, sorry, it's gone. It went to the people that came to view it half an hour before you did. And we were getting closer to the wedding, and we didn't have anywhere to live. And this is awkward because at that point I lived with Marcus. And Marcus and Karen were getting married as well, and so we can't live there. So there were other people living in that house as well, and where are we going to live? And I was driving down to the south coast where my family are, and I felt God speak to me. You see, I had a master plan in my head that I was going to be in Huddersfield for 3 or 4 years. This is in 2001. 3 or 4 years, and then I was going to head back to Littlehampton, where the sun shines and the sea glistens. And I felt in that moment, as I was driving down, God asked me, do you trust me? Do you trust me with your ambition? Do you trust me with your career plans? And I specifically heard God say to me, you need to resign your membership of your old church, and you need to root yourself in the church where I've called you to in Huddersfield. And so I think we arrived on the Thursday night. The Friday morning, I went to see the leader of my previous church, and on the and resign my membership, he was like, well, of course. Because, how many of us have had those meetings where someone says something like, well, that's obvious. And he said, of course. And I came up here, and on the Monday morning, I met with Trevor Lloyd, who was leading the church at the time. I said, I want to become a member of the church. He said, fantastic. That Wednesday, we got a house. God changed something because of my obedience. Do you trust him with your finance? A couple of years ago, we were moving house again, and I was doing the maths like you do with the spreadsheet. I had a very good spreadsheet, Trevor, you'd be proud. And I was doing all the maths. And I was looking at how much money we gave. And for some reason, I started feeling a bit resentful. I don't know why. I started feeling a bit grumpy about the amount of money we gave. So we made a decision, well, let's just pull that back a bit. Because if we pull that back a bit, we can afford this. And so we bought the house, and everything was going okay. And then we were at a conference 18 months ago, 15 months ago, something like that. And I went to a session on giving. And the guy stood at the front of the room and just said, God says, do you trust him? And in that moment, God spoke to me and said, do you trust me with your finances? And so I went back to Ruth and said, that calculation we made where we reduced all our giving? I think God's telling us to actually increase it. And so that month we started and we increased our giving. 2 months later, I got a repayment from my student loan, which is nice, that was exactly the amount of the extra we'd paid over the 2 months. See, God blesses obedience. And like I say, it's not transactional. I haven't had like £5 back for every pound that I've given. It doesn't work like that. But actually, God sees your obedience. Will you trust him? Will you trust him with your ambition? Will you trust him with your finance? Will you trust him with your health? Will you trust him with your family? Will you trust him with your job? I felt God say to me the other day, do you trust me with my church? When we trust God enough to let some things die, we believe that he will bring life. Sometimes we have to take something and we have to throw it in the grave, and we have to pick up the fresh life. And it's not just washed. It's not just carefully polished. It's completely new. It's completely transformed. There's not an ounce of coffee on that. It's gone. This doesn't mean it will be easy. It doesn't mean there won't be tears. There have been many tears. In my nearly 40 years of following Jesus, I have cried many times. Many of you have witnessed that. And there will be some things that we never understand. But when we take our messy and our broken lives and lay them down, he doesn't just clean us up. He actually completely transforms us and exchanges our old lives for something glorious. That's the power of the resurrection. That's the truth about the empty tomb. So the question is, will you trust him today? Will you trust him today?